Hey, what's up? It's Zoom and Zach, or Zachary McDonough, talking about all things real estate, business, and personal development. And today we're going to take you through our first episode ever of our first series, teaching you how to buy your first house or your next house. Now, going and buying a house can be really confusing. It can be really stressful. First, you start off by looking at Redfin and Zillow, and you're scrolling through these houses, and it eventually becomes a pipe dream. You're like,
how do I even do this?
But the whole goal of this series is to take that whole process and cut it up into bite-sized pieces so that you can help you understand it and push you closer to your goal of buying your first or your next house. Now, the first part of this process is going to be called getting pre-approved. Now, getting pre-approved is essentially where you are going to get a letter or basically an initial contact with a lender, and they're going to give you a letter so that you can give that to a seller so that when you go to put in your first offers, they have confidence that you can make good on that. Because imagine if you were to come to me as a seller and say, hey, you want to buy my house? And I go, yeah, I can give you $350,000, but I don't have any money, I don't have any loans, anything secured, and I just tell you that, and then I waste a bunch of your time, and then you're super stressed out because you just wasted all this time on me thinking that I was going to buy your house, and I had no intention. So that is an example where a lot of times these sellers really want you to bring in pre-approval letters, and today's market, you're really not going to get anywhere without a pre-approval letter. So keep that in mind. Now, when you're going to get pre-approved, you want to understand your options, and sometimes more information is better. So you want to start off with checking your own credit report and seeing and having this kind of information on hand so that when lenders are going to start talking to you about what your needs and what your abilities are, you have that information ready for them. But we're talking about lenders who are going to use, right? We don't know. So it's important to ask people around you, who have they used? You know, what are your options? Types of things like that. Because just like me, when I'm going on Amazon and I'm going, well, which oven mitt should I buy? And the top 10 picks all have 4.5 stars. I have no idea which oven mitts I should buy. So what I often do in these situations would be, what oven mitts do my friends buy? So the same goes for lending, right? Referrals. Okay, who have you used and why did you have a good experience with them? So this is generally when you're going to reach out on Facebook, reach out on Instagram, or whatever social platforms you use, and ask around and say, hey, I'm looking to buy my first or my next house. Who have you used? But let's get into options. If you're a first-time home buyer, some of your best options are going to be conventional loans, FHA loans, USDA loans, or VA loans. But here's the kicker. They're not all equal, hence the name differences. But we're going to summarize them so that you can kind of get a little bit of a conclusion, a little bit of an idea about what works best for you. So first is the FHA loan. Now with FHA loans, they generally have the lowest money down, being about 3.5%, but they have higher fees, usually higher closing costs, and they have MIP costs, which is really a mortgage insurance. And the reason why they have mortgage insurance is because you're bringing in a low down payment, which means you have a high loan to value, means you have the percentage of your loan to the value of the house. That is a loan to value. And because of that, the lenders need to secure that loan, make sure that you're good for it, right? Good for the money. And so they're going to charge you these mortgage insurances so that way, again, they can insure the loan. So they're more willing to give you the money. So that's something important to realize. Now, FHAs are interesting because generally they're used for first-time home buyers. However, the real rule is you can only just have one FHA loan at a time. So for example, I have an FHA loan on one of my properties. If I were to turn around and refinance that, I could reuse the FHA loan again for a different property as long as I live in the property. And a lot of these loans we're going to talk about are owner occupied, means that you, as the owner, have to occupy them for a certain amount of time. Now, if you're interested in more rules and more stipulations on these loans, besides this little overview we're going to give you, drop a comment below and I would love to give more information on these types of things. Now, what comes to number 2 is the conventional loan. Now, generally these are about 5% down. However, they can go as low as 3% down depending on your score, your credit score that is, depending on your market, types of things like that. So what's great about these versus the FHA loans is they generally have lower closing costs. However, just like the FHA loan, they do have a mortgage insurance, which is called PMI. So it's just differencing opinions, some people, have different things they like, some things they dislike, But generally, my experience was if you are able to secure a conventional loan over an FHA loan, it's generally better, because if you have to bring 5% down versus the 3.5% down, the closing costs that you have to pay for an FHA, it really comes out to really balance out, and would you rather have 5% down, 5% go towards your equity pay down? Would you rather pay 3.5% and then another 0.5% and tons of fees? So again, depends on your situation. Now, number 3 is the VA loan. And then this is generally 0% down, has no MIP, no PMI, which is, remember, is mortgage insurance. However, they are only, you can only get these if you're active duty or you're a military veteran. So if you have served in some sort, why don't you talk with somebody, figure out if that option works for you. These are great loans, and they're a great way to get into real estate with low money out of pocket and buy your first house or your next house. So number 4 comes to the USDA loan. Now these are 0% down. They have no PMI or MIP, but they have something that's called a guarantee fee, which is very similar to mortgage insurance, but it's significantly cheaper. The only drawback with this loan is it's sometimes, or generally, it's only for specific locations. The origination of the loan or the creation of it was actually for rural areas and for farmers so they could buy land, things like that. Now keep in mind, all of these options may or may not work for you depending on your location. Now, obviously, if you've never served in the military or you're not a veteran, the VA is not going to work for you. But I would still talk to a lender about USDA, even if you're in a metro area or a city. I would still talk about conventionals. I would still talk about FHAs with lenders, because again, more knowledge, more experience of you going out there and getting confidence by learning from these lenders. So that being said, here's another tip. Even if you're not essentially a first-time home buyer, if you haven't bought a house in the last 3 years, a lot of these loan programs, you're still eligible for the really good terms that a first-time home buyer would get. Now, terms, in short, which we can talk more about in other future videos, terms are like interest rates or origination points, which are, again, percentage points that you pay for the lender, or it's like essentially a fee that the lender will charge you for them going through the process of originating the loan. So, we're talking about pre-approvals, we're talking about lending, we're talking about getting letters, but this all requires a lender, right? So now we're going to talk about what to look for in a lender. Like, what do we look for? I don't know. Again, we're going back to that whole process of the 4.5 stars on Amazon. We have to be able to figure out what are the different stipulations, the different criteria that we want to say, okay, this makes somebody that we really think we could really invest time in, and they could be our lender. Now, number 1, I always recommend local lenders. And the great thing about local lenders is you can build a personal relationship with them, and they understand your market. So in these ways, they can give you sometimes they can be a little bit more flexible and bend the knee to really help you in the ways that you need. So that's a great thing. Now with big lenders, sometimes there's situations. I know people personally that have gone to close with big lending companies that just 2 weeks before they're closing, the lending companies say, hey, we need you to bring down an extra 5% down because of X situation. Where a lot of times local lenders may not make that decision. They may not do that kind of thing because they want your business, they want your referrals, because again, they're local lenders. So this is a great way to really leverage people and your experience and also your community. Now, number 2, and this is such an important, pivotal part of all the members that are part of your team that are going to help you buy your first home or your next home, is make sure you find a lender that is a teacher, right? Somebody that's educated and is willing to explain and willing to answer questions, because sometimes it's really confusing. There's lots of terms and definitions that you're like,
what is that? What are you talking about? I have no idea what you're saying.
So make sure you kind of put them to the test and ask lots of questions. Don't be afraid. And if you're interested in us making a video about a list of questions that you should ask a lender to be able to determine if they're a good lender for you or they're a good fit for you, make sure you drop a comment below and let me know. And I would love to make a video showing you what you should ask your lender and how to go about it. Again, all this process is about establishing confidence so that you can take your first or your next step confidently and be able to move forward and be able to be ready to go get your first house. So, as we wrap up, I just want to disclaim this one thing. I am not an expert. These types of things, these rules and conditions that I'm talking about, they're subject to change with the market and with the times. But these are general concepts with general ideas that are going to push you forward, again, to continue to help you move forward with confidence. So my goal is just to help you with that. My goal is to help you with your next or your first home buy. Now, don't forget, first, check your credit. Next, go out and ask lots of people about these different types of loans. What did they do? What was their experience? And hopefully they'll recommend you a lender that you can go jump on a call and ask them lots of questions so that, again, you can get more comfortable with this process. Now, next, make sure that that lender that you end up selecting is a lender that's a teacher. Somebody that's not only educated, but is willing to explain and learn and teach you so that you can learn these types of things, these conditions, these different information, all those things that really are important to establish confidence for you moving forward. And then next, get it pre-approved to see how much you can afford. Now, before we go, drop a comment if you want us to talk about more about how much you can afford and what's important, because most people want to see what their what the max amount they can afford, but it doesn't mean that you always want to exercise that. You know, there's different opinions, different thoughts, different math on what your allotted housing expenses should be, especially depending on your situation, depending on different things that are going on in your life. So if that's something you're going to be interested in, make sure you drop a comment below, and I would love to make a video explaining these types of topics to you. So that being said, thanks for watching. If you like this video, make sure you drop a like, make sure you subscribe for more videos just like this to continue watching the series, and more importantly, hit the notification bell so that you can be updated when we make the next part of this series and continue to help you move forward with confidence in buying your first or your next home. Thanks for watching. This is Zooming Zach. I'll see you on the next episode of Zooming Zach.